Welcome back to Where Lions Walk. This week, we're saying thank you to the legend that is Neil Harris.
No one likes us! No one likes us! No one likes us! We don't care! We are Millwall! Super Millwall! We are Millwall! From the
Welcome back. It's episode 20. This week, we are saying thank you, Neil. Looking back at where would Millwall be without Neil Harris? And of course, we have to beg the question, who next? Who the Millwall fans want to see in the door next? What are the latest rumours? And we're also asking, what's going on with the Championship this season? Why is it not ignited into the exciting league we know it can be? Why is it feeling so flat? We've got Charlie and we've got Callum back with us. Thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate all your love for everything that we're doing. Last week was mind-blowing numbers. Thank you very much to over 3,000 of you tuning in to watch last week's episode. We really, really appreciate that. So, Charlie, when we left you last Monday, you headed, of course, into the midweek games, and by Tuesday lunchtime, could you believe the news that was coming out of your club?
In a way, it was a bit of a shock, even though we'd sort of been hinting at it in the last couple of episodes about what could be happening with Harris at the end of the season. I didn't expect it to happen in a way it did. It felt like there was a sort of tension going on within the club in the couple of days leading up to it, of course, with all the comments and everything like that. But it did feel like a bit of a shock that they just decided right there and then that was enough. And to be honest, I think the even weirder decision was when we found out that Harris was taking us into the next 2 games and then he was leaving. And I think that's probably what's led to the results that we've seen this week as well.
Yeah. There's lots of kind of rumours online, Callum, about what's gone on and who said what. What do you believe as a Millwall fan has happened here, aside the conspiracy theories? Who's made this decision?
I think he's made the decision, and I think it's because it's been, as like Charlie just said, some of the comments throughout the season that he's made after games has sort of hinted that he's not really liked certain things that where the club's like been throughout the last couple of months. You know, bringing in the young players, you know, like Ivanovic for $2.5 million. Obviously, we've changed the structure of the club and the model to bringing in young players, young assets, and selling them on for money. And obviously, we're in that good run. And then I think just after a few games, you know, with the stuff that's happened and that. And I think, you know, we talk about, you know, Eze, who's been a shining light in our team, and we look at, you know, Ivanovic and Langstaff who we bought. They've not really, I don't think they've done a lot in games. So that could be an issue. And then Harris is obviously thinking, you know, we brought these players in, they're not really doing too much. So that's another thing. But I just think that, you know, the club's gone into a way where they're buying young players and they're not ready for the Championship now. Whereas I think he thinks in his mind, you know, if we get 2 or 3 good players in January, we could have a go at the top 6. And obviously the club have, you know, we could put it down to Steve Gallen, Jimmy Berylson. They want to go to a new direction. And I don't think it's the right decision personally. I think he should have stayed to the end of the season. But I just think that Harris has probably had enough and he doesn't really want to, you know, disrupt his legacy at the club, which is he's a legendary figure at the club. Let's not appear that way. So I think it's difficult, but he's left on his own terms, which I salute him for and I respect it massively.
Absolutely. Thank you for everything, Neil. Ben says Bomber deserves a statue. We would do anything for our club like we all would. Gutted, he's absolutely going. Scott says this man will always be there for us and we love him for it. Thanks. Thank you, legend. We'll come on to the odds in a minute. Alfred says, say what you want about this man and his team selections, but what not the bottom line is we would be League One this season without him. Heartbroken, and I'm worried for the rest of the season because one thing you guarantee with Neil Harris is that the players will run through walls. Come on, you Lions. Which I think is my favourite tweet of the week there. Thank you, Alfred. He's right, isn't he, Charlie? One thing, you know, you can't disagree with is he gets his players up for the fight.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that, especially heading into the period of the season we're in now, the Christmas period, we've got so many games stacked up against very high caliber opponents coming up, and I think it just really makes the decision weird that they've decided to get rid of him now. Well, but that he stepped back now. It says there was a mutual decision with the club. But obviously, that's probably mainly on Neil Harris's part. But the fact that we've brought in David Livermore to take over for the next couple of games, it's sort of like, why didn't we convince him to just stay until at least the club had someone in the background to bring in, instead of just leaving us at a sort of dead spot and saying, you've got 5 games coming up over the next few weeks. It could make or break our season. We could be looking at being in a relegation zone by the beginning of January.
Can I just step in there quickly?
Yeah, go.
What he just said is absolutely spot on. And for me personally, we talk about what I've just spoken about, as in like Harris has mentioned these sort of things throughout his time this season, about the, like, stuff like, people coming off the bench. We haven't got nothing on the bench. I think it was against Bristol City towards the start of the season. He said, I've got nothing off the bench. I need to go in the summer transfer window and get some more players. But, all these things that he said previously, I'm quite surprised that the board have not gone, hang on a minute, like, he obviously, like, is something wrong with there. So they should be, realistically, if they weren't going to sign him or extend his contract to the end of the season, surely at the start of the season they would have kept on, running through the managers that are available, like who they're going to get in, just in case he did, previously. He's obviously not now gone. So I'm a bit surprised that the board haven't come in and, had someone in place right now, rather than getting Neil Harris for an extra 2 games and then potentially having David Livermore for the next, like, I don't know, probably till after Christmas now we're looking. So I think it's very bizarre. It's a bizarre time to be a Millwall supporter at the minute, because there's so much uncertainty at the minute. So it's quite scary.
It probably speaks to the volumes, like you both said, that he's decided to leave, isn't he? Because, like you said, if it was the hierarchy, they would have a plan, you'd hope, in place. Racking up, he certainly sounds like he's, I'm not saying spat his dummy out, but he certainly sounds like he's gone, no, I'm not having this, and off I go. What's your favourite Neil Harris memory, Charlie? I mean, I'm sure he'll be back at some point in some role, but what do you want to thank him for, and what's your favourite memory of his latest come?
I think the latest stint, I'd have to go with Southampton away. I think that was probably one of the best days in the club's recent history, if you go that far. I think it was like the fairy tale ending. Fairy tale beginning even for this time. Harris coming back, beating one of the biggest teams in the league at that point. It just sort of summed up Neil Harris with a 1-0 win, centre back headering it in from a free kick. It was almost like the romantic ending of Neil Harris sort of thing, if you know what I mean. But I think definitely he's a legend for keeping us up last year. But I think we will see him again at some point. Just maybe not as a manager again. I think maybe he'll come back one day as a sort of higher up, maybe director of football or that sort of role at the club, because he does love the club. So it'll be great to see him back.
Yeah, he is absolutely Mr. Millwall. Callum, do you honestly believe that you would be League One right now if it wasn't for Neil Harris?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were down in the dumps, like we were basically gone. I mean, we was in the relegation battle. I think we was bottom 3, maybe like 2 points off the bottom 3 at the time in February. And, he's come back, and as the first game he had was obviously what Charlie just said, Southampton away. And we've won 1-0, and we've had like probably, I think, 30% possession of the ball, and we've managed to get 3 points. And it was a great away day. That was probably one of the best away days I've had as a Millwall fan in recent times. So yeah, the fans were, well, as soon as he came back, the fans were on board. Everyone was like, uplifted, and we was all together because we had our Millwall back. And I think that's the one thing that we're now probably going to miss with Harris not being here is, he always comes back to it, the Millness of the team. I think the Millness is what Mill fans love about Neil Harris's teams. We're like, hard to beat, defensively so good. I mean, you look at the games we've had this season under him. I mean, the Burnley Leeds game, 1-0 wins. We've been defensively so good, especially against Leeds. I mean, a few managers have commented on that victory. Johnny Jackson of Wimbledon, Russell Martin, obviously against Southampton, of the structure that we have defensively under Harris. So he deserves so much credit. And yeah, he's a true legend, and he will be sorely missed.
Okay. All right. On that note, I'm afraid we have to then ask the next question, which is who next for Millwall. Let's have a look at the latest bookies odds as of the 16th of December. So this is what this is the latest from Fixture. Matt Bloomfield at the moment is the heavy favourite to come in. Obviously from League One. Steve Cooper's name there as well. Gary Rowett is always linked, of course, with Millwall. Mark Robbins is there. Kevin Muscat is in the list as well, and Michael Appleton. Any of those names there, Charlie, excite you?
I personally want to see us bring in someone with a bit of experience this time around. I think we need someone who's progressive in a way of football, so a better tactician than Harris in a way. But I think we also need someone who knows the Championship and knows how to work with it, and also working on a low budget. So I think out of that list, I'd probably look at Mark Robbins as my ideal replacement for him. I think obviously Kevin Muscat or someone like that who knows the club would be great, but he's in China winning the league, so I don't think we'll manage to tempt him away. But I think a coach like Bloomfield, who, I mean, credit to him, he's doing a great job at Wickham, but I think that's almost too much of a gamble, someone who hasn't had experience in this league before.
Okay. Callum?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think there's been quite a bit of uncertainty amongst fans, especially on social media, about who they want. Charlie said there, Mark Robbins. I don't know really. I think I watched Sam Parkin the other day on a podcast, and he was talking about Mark Robbins potentially coming in. And I feel like Mark Robbins is sort of a manager, not a head coach, which is something the club are looking for. I think it's probably, he was obviously manager at Coventry and he'd done a fantastic job there. But I feel like if the club want a head coach, I think Mark Robbins is more of a manager than a head coach. So I don't think they'll go for him. I think we've got to name a few names that are not on that list. I think Stephen Schumacher has been mentioned in the last couple of days. And you look at the new managers that have just recently lost their jobs in the Premier League, Gary O'Neill, who I believe is a Millwall fan. So that could potentially be something, but whether he'll come to Millwall is another thing. David Wagner, I've heard that has been to a few Millwall games in recent times, but whether he comes or not, and I've spoken to a few Norwich fans who are friends, they don't really like him either. So it's a difficult one. I can't give you a name, Mark, to be honest. I have no idea who they're going to bring in, but what I will say is it's going to be a decisive appointment. If this one does not go well, then we could be dragged down into the relegation battle, and we could have like a Joe Edwards situation all over again, where we get in a young manager for this team, and we all know how the Joe Edwards stint worked out, and we went back to Neil Harris. So it's a very, very big appointment to be made by the management team upstairs.
The most left field suggestion I read was John Terry is of course being pouted for his first managerial job. Charlie, would you be happy with a celebrity kind of name coming in and managing Millwall such as John Terry?
No, not really. I don't think that would really work, because I mean the thing with having someone like a John Terry or like as Plymouth have a Wayne Rooney or something like that is, I think especially at Millwall, if John Terry comes in and falls flat on his feet, he will get stick straight away. Like the fans will be on him, and then it will just turn nasty, and we'll end up bringing Harris back again. But it's sort of like I think the only other name I've seen floating around today, I think he said on Sky Sports that he will be looking for a job very soon, is Tony Mowbray. I think that's the sort of profile of manager we need to look at. Someone with the experience. Tony Murray likes to play young players, stuff like that. The only thing I'd say of him is obviously he's had recent health implications, stuff like that. So moving all the way down to London, it's a difficult one. So I think there's a lot of good managers out there at the moment, and I think we should go for someone with that experience. And I think someone like a John Terry or someone like that, I don't think they'd work at Millwall.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, both of you, for that. Aside from manager talk this week, obviously we're not going to look too much on the two results you've had, especially the Middlesbrough game. They're gone, dusted. Nothing will change from that one. Blackburn this weekend, of course, who are going. They are going good guns as well, so you're going to have to be on your form to stop them. But we're talking generally about football and the Championship. It hasn't lit up yet this season. For some reason, people think it's a bit flat. There's not been that kind of excitement about it that perhaps there usually has been. First of all, Callum, for you, are they correct? And if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's from previous seasons. It's been quite tight this year, which is, you've got the likes of Burnley, Leeds, Sheffield United who have come down. Obviously Leeds are in here anyway, but Burnley and Sheffield United have come down, and yeah, I think it's been like quite a tight league this year, where if you get a couple of results, you're up there in the top six. However, if you're if you lose a couple of games, then you're down in the relegation battle. So I think it is quite congested, which I kind of like, actually. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it gives more chance to the team to get in that top six and, get into the playoffs. So I quite like it. I quite like it being tight. Gives more teams a chance to go up. But I mean, some people can say that, the games haven't been as exciting as, other previous years. But for me, I think it's been enjoyable this year. I think, yeah, just been enjoyable. I think I see why people say it's, not got that much hype, probably because we're used to seeing so many big teams do so well. I think this year, the big teams have not done as well as we thought they would. It'd be more tight. So It's probably a good thing for the lower teams with low budgets.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think the quality of the Championship this year has actually been quite better. I think in certain parts of the season, I think you look at the squads that are in the Championship. I think there's very high caliber players. Look at us. We've got Japhet Tanganga at centre back. Like, he was Premier League. I'm thinking he's a Premier League player. You've got the Leeds squad, who easily that could be a Premier League squad. I think they're better than the likes of Southampton and that, if you really looked at it. And I think it's still the thing in the Championship. Anyone can beat anyone. If you look at us beating Burnley and Leeds, so there's still that competitiveness. I'd say the reason it feels so flat this year, if you really wanted to criticise, would be the atmospheres, and I think that's down to the Sky deal that came in, because I think so many 12 o'clock kickoffs on a Sunday or a Monday night game, or it just sort of, there's less people in the stadiums. It's just feeling like a little bit dull at points. I'd even say some Millwall games this season, that you can tell the fact that it's on Sky on a Sunday, people aren't as convinced to come to the ground. So that's probably the reason it feels a bit more flat. But I'd say it's definitely still got its competitive edge this year.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. People saying kickoff times are ridiculous, and also some teams playing the same way all the time, tippy tappy, Pep Guardiola at the back, and obviously not doing it well. We don't see any variety, and obviously Millwall probably the antidote to that, to be honest. Yeah, thank you, Neil Harris, again for that. Right, thank you very much for all your comments on all the stuff we've been doing. Thank you very much for all the last couple of weeks on Neil Harris. A new era is going to start at Millwall. We don't know when, but we'll be along with you for the journey for it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. We hate asking for that, because it bugs me when I watch videos asking for subscribers, but we really want to make sure that we can get well over 100 and on our way to 250. If we can get there before Christmas, that'd be great. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Charlie. Enjoy the Blackburn game, and we'll see you in 7 days' time. One more before Christmas. See you then.